colleagues, we come to the end of another World Congress, our 10th, and together we have entered our 4th decade as a federation. First, allow me to recognise and thank the new President of Education International, Mgwena Maluluke. My congratulations and my very best wishes. He will be in a very important partnership with one of the strongest global leaders in the union movement or in any organisation today, General Secretary David Edwards. Congratulations on your re-election, David. In my work at EI, I have been honoured to work with giants like Mary Hatwood-Frutel, Tula Snexy, and Fred Van Leeuwen. I especially treasure my time working with Fred, our founding General Secretary. The focus of this Congress on democratic values is a reminder of what mattered most intensely to Fred. Our resolve on the subject is a testament to his leadership. I'm confident that together, this new combination of President and General Secretary can lead this organisation to new heights of influence on global and national education policies and service to our members. In turn, they will have around them an outstanding team of leaders in the new officers and executive board. I have been a proud member of the Australian Education Union, the AEU, since 1974, and the progressive campaigning and fighting legacy of our union has guided me every step of the way since. I must thank someone else, colleagues. Not a someone, actually, but a group. Not many are designated as leaders by title, but they are leaders in their own fields of expertise, and they are the staff of the Secretariat of Education International in Brussels and the regional staff in each region of the world. When Congress directs EI to pursue a particular course of action or engage in a global crisis, or a call goes out to assist a member organisation, the staff is always there to answer the call, to use their knowledge and their experience to meet the need, including very significant work with partners on critical issues like climate change, child labour, contract and precarious work, refugee education, just to name a few. Much, if not most, of what we accomplish here at Congress regarding resolutions are mandates to the President, the officers, the General Secretary and the Executive Board to steer the Federation with the Secretariat and the regional officers providing the engine. And let's take a brief look at some of those specific directions that you and your fellow delegates debated and in some cases amended and then ultimately provided this week. We accomplished big things that set us on a course for the future. That future is anchored by our global campaign, Go Public, Fund Education. This campaign has not only been supercharged by the United Nations panel that all but endorsed EI's policy agenda, the campaign has been actively engaged by member organisations in every region of the world. Your actions this week add impetus to the campaign and direct other action by the Executive Board and the Secretariat. The Go Public, Fund Education campaign continues to be embraced by member organisations, focusing now on building union capacity at the national level through campaigns based upon the UN panel recommendations. We heard that the campaign is focused most directly on tackling the teacher shortage, and that dedicated resources are already delivering direct support to member organisations. In Mongolia, Indonesia, Nepal, Sierra Leone, Cameroon, South Sudan, Lebanon and Iraq. And preparations are underway for planning missions to the Philippines, Uruguay, Argentina and Costa Rica later in the year. The campaign is now ripe for significant expansion beyond the 14 2024 target countries. As a federation, we recommitted ourselves to confronting the teacher shortage directly and ensuring that a well-qualified, well-resourced teacher is available to every student in every classroom every day. To protecting the rights of workers, including teachers, and ensuring fair and equitable working conditions globally. We mandated a campaign to respond to the impact of the growth of the far right on teachers and education, including acting as a resource for education unions to oppose the rise of fascism and attacks on democracy and workers' rights, and an effort to defend scientific personnel and their institutions against conservative and neoliberal policies that threaten and prevent scientists from expressing themselves. We will refocus our efforts on the achievement of Sustainable Development Goal in all its parts, with a particular emphasis on gender equity in education. In that vein, we will demand governments increase their domestic investments in education to meet international benchmarks for public expenditure on education. Carrying forward our commitment to sustainability, we vowed meaningful climate change interventions to limit global temperature rise and advance climate and environmental justice for all, particularly for those communities most affected. We resolved to stand united on the subject of artificial intelligence in education, with continuous research and lobbying efforts on the use of AI, technology tools, data collection and privacy. Education technology must be designed and tested responsibly with teachers, deployed equitably and safely, and focused on complementing and enhancing the role of educators in guiding and inspiring learners and protecting their data. This week, we also asserted our well-recognised credentials for peace and against militarisation around the world. As educators, we condemn the brutality and the killing and continue to stand very publicly for peace, respect, and human dignity. EI is committed to maintaining a sense of urgency and presence in the midst of war and oppression everywhere. Colleagues, the work you did here this week has set us on a strong course to grow our unions, elevate our profession, and defend democracy. These are the policies that you have mandated that affect the practice of our members and the success of our students to live in a sustainable world. These decisions by Congress are a global testament to our values and our mission as a federation and as unions. As my time as your president comes to a close, I would like to speak for a moment about our role as individuals and the opportunities we have to take action for our unions, our profession, and the cause of democracy. Actions that cannot be contained in resolutions or defined by floor motions or roll call votes in Congress or in any other meeting. We have spoken at this Congress about the policy and political building blocks that have elevated our federation to its global status as the leading voice of educators. But that status could never have been achieved if it were not for the one simple word that lies at the foundation of all of our unions. That word is organising. It's a simple word, and like so many, it has multiple meanings. As unionists, organising is one of our core values and one of the keys to our success. It's what we did with the Unite campaign in 2014 and 2015. We put a standalone call for quality education for every student everywhere in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, after a global campaign that organised and mobilised EI member organisations around the world. That campaign and the body of work around the SDGs has had a profound effect on the standing of EI around the world, one that should make us both be very proud and very energised. Proud because that campaign and the years of work surrounding it, followed by our global response to privatisation and commercialisation campaign, propelled EI onto the world stage and into the ranks of global policy and political influencers. Energised because that role, as the global voice of teachers and education support personnel, is not a permanent status. Once earned, it must be held and renewed. As El Shanker said 30 plus years ago at EI's founding, it is an idea. And Mary Futrell said at the same time, now we have a union to build. Indeed, through its member organisations, EI has built this federation on the idea that organising and campaigning go hand in hand. The goals and values and the very tactics of our campaigns are organising efforts to energise and mobilise. Many of our unions base their work on what is commonly called the organising model, the ability to use the strength of the union to move policy by first showing members how policy affects their lives. What do we want to achieve? And then next, what actions will it take together to get there? Despite the many minutes we listen in speeches in all our meetings, it's not about speeches or meetings, but about motivating and mobilising action. That is the essence of organising. And it's not only internal. It is also about working with new organisations, allies, strengthening and bringing them on board. You've seen the fruits of that work this week with groups like the United Nations, UNESCO, the ILO and the Global Union Federations actively advocating shared agendas with Education International. Now we are leveraging these hard-won global alliances in our global campaign, Go Public, Fund Education, connecting the crisis in funding to the sustainable world we want to create, holding governments accountable for investing in teachers, investing in education, and putting qualified teachers in well-resourced public systems for every child, every lesson, every day. The name of our campaign, To Go Public, tells everyone that we are not going to be silent, that we are committed to inserting ourselves into the difficult issues, to be unmistakable, to organise. Organising also means actively pushing against the status quo, systems that have stopped working or are no longer fit for purpose because they've been broken by politics or failed policies, or in some cases are working only in the dysfunctional way they were originally designed. Sometimes organising means actively pushing back against the status quo of our own unions. Some legacy structures and practices chronically do a poor job of an urgent task, that is, making our unions inclusive. Some unions are chronically failing to bring women, young people and Indigenous members into the union and create the opportunities to move ahead in rank and responsibility. Colleagues, organising has varied meanings in our unions. We employ and designate organisers for our events, for our campaigns, and for our states, locals and nationals, often specialists with experience and very good at these roles, especially the role of persuading new members and organising the unorganised. But when we talk about organising success, we must trace the source. It certainly didn't originate with the virtual endorsement of our policies by the UN, or the influence we've had on global organisations and NGOs, or national policies, or even the research, policy and political efforts our union members have made in countless crises. No, we all know how that influence originates. We all have our own origin stories in this work and very personal definitions of organising. And here's one. More than half a century ago, a couple of teachers who were involved in their local union asked a young teacher, a union member, if she'd be interested in being involved in women's issues. It wasn't a big job, no experience required. The young woman took the role, later stood for office and became a leader in her school and union. And that was me. And the reason it all happened comes down to 3 words. I was asked. A colleague who was a local vice president asked me to run for state council. She said, "We need women like you." I remember the conversation. Since then, she's told me that she considered that part of her job was to look for her successors. Think about that. I ask you, colleagues, who are your successors? This federation with 373 organisations in 180 nations with 33 million members has been recognised as the voice of the educators at the highest levels of global governments. But it was built, and it works, and it will endure and thrive on the work of individuals, including this high school maths teacher from a small country town in Australia. Who are your successors? This organisation, this movement that we're part of, is about people. It's about relationships. It's about joining together and recognising the ordinary and the extraordinary women and men around us who can fight and lead the good fight on the streets and in the courts, at the ballot box and the ministry office and at the bargaining table with management and the kitchen table with our greatest political allies, our neighbours, our families, our friends, our communities. Each generation of successors are the essential building blocks of strong unions. Unions that are united, strong and purposeful. Unions that are sustainable, independent and democratic. Unions that can change the world. Thank you for the privilege of being one of those building blocks. Thank you to my global EI family for your enduring friendship and commitment. And thank you to my family, some of whom you met yesterday by video. I have been lucky, and we are all fortunate to have the unconditional love of family. Serving my union and my federation has been the greatest honour of my life. Thank you.